أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسول. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Welcome to the Ilm broadcast. Today we will continue our discussion on women's rights and we will discuss the topic of marriage. What is the need for marriage? What are some guidelines that Islam has given us about the topic of marriage? Our guest today is Mrs. Fawzia Aziz, who was a retired teacher and interpreter, and who now devotes her time to the study of Islam, specifically with regards to women's rights. And she has been doing extensive research and study on this topic, for which we are very grateful. So let us proceed with our first question to Mrs. Aziz. For quite some time now, there has been a trend for people to deny that marriage is something which is important for our society, particularly in the West. What is the importance of the institution of marriage in the light of Islam?
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. As we have been doing, following topic of marriage in so many different ways, and today, inshallah, we will try and look at some of the questions that people have raised after watching our videos and some things that we think we need to look and explore so that we can have feedback from our listeners to guide us into carrying it forward for all of us. Because we are not theologians, we are just people who are interested in our faith, who love our faith of Islam. And being an Ahmadi, we feel that we have a privilege of following the Holy Quran as it is right in front of us, every word of it, and the hadiths which are so much resource for us to use from and learn from. So let's hope that we can rely on our abilities and our listeners' abilities to guide us forward. So we're looking at, as the question has said, that what are the trends and what is the importance of the marriage institution. The institution of marriage is the foundation of the structure which is needed in building societies. If there is no marriage, then there can be no family, no ties of kinship, no force uniting the different elements of humanity, and consequently, no civilization. It is through family that humanity is held together and civilization made possible. The institution of marriage is also responsible to a very great extent for the development of these feelings of love and service, which are the pride of humanity today. The mutual love of husband and wife, a love based not on momentary passion, but lifelong connection, and the consequent parental love of offspring leads to a very high development of the feeling of love of human for human as such, and to the disinterested service of humanity. This love is described as a sign of God in the Holy Quran. In Ayat 30, verse 21, it says, "And of his signs is this, that he created mates for you from yourselves, that you may find quiet of mind in them, and he put between you love and compassion." We in the West live in an environment very different from the ideals Islam teaches us regarding marriage. In my own 40 years living in the West and seeing different ways of cohabiting hasn't convinced me against marriage. I feel it is shying away from an institution which is perfected for us in Islam. The bond of marriage in other faiths also puts a great deal of emphasis on it. Sometimes Something that starts as a legal contract gives time and safe space to get to know each other, and knowing you have control on the decisions made before the marriage and what your aims are as individuals to either make that marriage or break it. I quote below from a UK law webpage giving clients guidance to the pros and cons of marriage versus cohabitation, which is very common in the West. And there is an agreement that people can go into. I didn't look into a lot of websites, but this particular one took my interest. And some points he shares with his clients about cohabitation. It's an agreement. It says that lowers the risk of arguing or splitting up due to financial matters, and doesn't require legal action to resolve any disputes. It could save you money, as a cohabitation agreement could help you avoid the need for legal action. Life will be easier in the event that you do split up. There will be certainly as certainty, as the agreement will set out the details of what should happen upon a breakdown. By having a cohabitation agreement, it can make matters easier and less acrimonious. I think this word acrimonious is something that people are very scared of. Marriage, and then he gives points about marriage. Marriage may seem similar to cohabitation, but they are actually different from each other in various ways. Marriage can only take place with the formal ceremony and the signing of the marriage register, whereas cohabitation can start instantly without any formalities, and it can finish instantly. Marriage has to be ended by a legal divorce or annulment process, which can be an expensive, time-consuming process. Cohabitation does not require any formal ending. So couples divorcing have the right to claim against the other's assets. Cohabitating couples have no such rights as yet in English law. This is very important when faced with a scenario when a property is owned by one party or both parties live in that property. If married, they both have rights to the property. But if cohabiting, I've lost the pronunciation of this word. Maybe I don't like it, that's why. The party who does not have their name on the property may receive nothing. So legally, they are not comfortable. So what people have objected to in modern times is not to living together in a marriage-like state, a state where faithfulness and commitment is expected by both sides. Their objection is formally enter into marriage through a specified procedure. I may give an analogy. When a person gives evidence in court, everyone knows that he should be telling the truth, but still he is required to take an oath in the words that he will tell the truth. This is to act as a reminder to him and to emphasize to him its importance. Entering into marriage formally is just like taking this oath so that the relationship is not merely understood or implied, but declared clearly. And this enforces the commitment to the relationship. Another point is that marriage brings two families together, each side acquiring in-laws, establishing bond between many people. In cohabitation, do people have in-laws? Are your partner's parents and siblings complete strangers to you, or are they related to you, like they are in marriage. At the beginning, I mentioned the importance of marriage. Sadly, our practices in various cultures have distorted the clear and, in my eyes, perfect legal standing that puts man and woman on equal platform to make what they want of this picture in their mind of a happy married life. The canvas is yours on which you can draw your own picture, keeping in mind the boundaries of your canvas. So we end it here and see how both ways of living as a married couple or as cohabiting, how one is better than the other. Well, in my eyes, purely, but you have to leave it to the listeners to decide.
Jazakallah, Mrs. Aziz. That was very beautifully explained. As I see it, marriage is all about giving people their rights. Allah wants us to have rights. He wants us to be protected. And so he wants to prevent injustice in society. So that is the objective of the marriage. Let's go on to our next question. Another thing we see in our modern society is that we spend much more time preparing for the wedding than we do preparing for the marriage, which is the life together. Or so, what education about the rights and responsibilities within marriage should we give our youth as they approach the age of marriage and seeking in the light of the Quran and Sunnah?
Now we look at what guidance Allah has given us in this very important matter. O people, and this is Surah An-Nisa and the first ayat of it. O people, keep your duty to your Lord, who created you from a single being and created its mate of the same kind, and spread from these two many men and women. And keep your duty to Allah, by whom you demand one another your rights, and to the ties of relationship. Surely Allah is ever a watcher over you. So from this we see that the most important thing for man and woman to see is the duty to Allah before anything else. It's the duty to our Creator. Before you do anything, the thought in the forefront of your mind is the duty to the duty you have to your Creator. He is telling you that you go ahead and find a mate for yourself from His creation, always remembering your duty to Him. You have a choice, but the duty is yours. When the duty of Allah is in your mind, then you start to think of what duties you have towards your life partner and how you will make this happen. So you realize the importance of the union where you have to fulfill the duties of Allah and also the person who you want to spend your life with. In the societies we live in, very often all responsibility is taken away from you. So in your mind, your duty becomes to your parents who have chosen the person for you, for your marriage, not Allah. The balance Allah wants to create in an individual's mind, making one of the most important decisions of one's life, is for the reason that they become aware of their duties to Allah and the person they are choosing to spend the rest of their lives. It's not simply just falling in love and doing your own thing, but there is a reason and a purpose of people coming together and then fulfilling their duties. I feel in our societies, we have to find time in a child's life to prepare them for very important decisions, which they have to make at different stages in their lives. We also look at who is responsible for passing on this information to the children. Is it the school or the parents? I feel both, to some extent, are responsible for preparing and enabling children in informed decision making skills, because they start at very young age when children have to decide which subjects to study, because that depends for the rest of their lives, the career then they follow. And they are the ones who have to put up with the consequences of it. We have to work to give our children tools to make them feel confident in making small decisions to start with, and also facing consequences of those decisions. They need to learn how to handle failure and success. If they have experience in making small decisions in their life, then they will be well equipped by the time they reach an age of maturity. With guidance of elders in the family, they can take an active part in making decisions of marriage. We also need to think of premarital guidance courses that must be essential for all to attend before the marriage ceremony takes place. And all the guidance which is in the Quran and the Hadith can be discussed. There are so many different things that one needs to know. When I got married, I didn't know anything. So the man and woman are well informed of their rights and responsibilities towards each other and Allah. They are also taught how to deal with conflict in the best Islamic manner. When you have looked at marriage from all angles, then you will be better equipped in dealing with issues as and when they appear, and will not be a surprise. You will not be surprised by anything that comes your way. When you have taken part in choosing your partner, then the arrangements of marriage will become an enjoyable part of the scenario, rather than just like a chief guest at your marriage, which I experienced when I got married. And a lot of people, when the fashion became of making videos of films, they say, my English friends used to say, why does the girl look so depressed? And I used to say, well, because this poor girl, like I, came from a very educated family, marrying into a very educated family. And our first meeting was on our wedding day, which is just ridiculous. And the nikah ceremony took place in two different rooms, a room that I was in and a room that my husband was in. I didn't know what the marriage sermon said. So when we look at these scenarios, and we have suffered because of it, it's only through the grace of Almighty Allah that we have survived, that He has given us the strength and the ability to carry on living that life, which was chosen for us. It wasn't chosen by us. So there are so many different things that we really need to dig deep and understand that why we have so many problems today, not only in the West, but in our countries as well, in the Muslim nation as well. So it's a topic which can't just end in a half an hour talk. It's a topic that needs to be looked at by the youth themselves, that what they want out of these scenarios, because they are going through it themselves at the moment. So I'll finish it here for the time being.
Jazakallah, that was an excellent response. And it made me think of the preparation for marriage is essentially your personality that you are developing, right? To bring forward for the rest of your life. And I like the analogy you gave of, choosing the subjects you're going to study, thinking of your career. Nobody just thinks of the, what kind of house I'm going to live in or what kind of clothes I'm going to wear to my job. You think about what skills you need and what training you need. So we need to approach marriage with the same mindset. And inshallah, I hope that we will have the opportunity to discuss this topic in some more detail. Let us go on to our next question. So, in the time of the Blessed Prophet, peace be upon him, his community at that time would discuss intimate issues from an Islamic perspective. since they desire to bring their whole lives in harmony with Allah's guidance. Typically, such issues are not discussed in our societies. What guidance does Islam give us on this matter?
Before we look at it in detail, which is a very sensitive and a very important issue that we all need to look at together, I would like to point out a couple of references of hadith. The first one is from Sahih Muslim, Book 3, and the second one is from Bukhari, Book 3. And I will read what they are. The first one from Sahih Muslim. Asma, daughter of Shakal, asked the Messenger of Allah about washing after menstruation. He said, everyone amongst you should use water mixed with the leaves of the lot tree and cleanse herself well, and then pour water on her head and rub it vigorously till it reaches the roots of the hair. Then she should pour water on it. Afterwards, she should take a piece of cotton smeared with musk and cleanse herself with it. Asma said, how should she cleanse herself with the help of that? Upon this, he, the Messenger of Allah, observed, praise be to Allah, she should cleanse herself. Aisha said in a subdued tone that she should apply it to the trace of blood. She, Asma, then further asked about bathing after sexual intercourse. He, the Holy Prophet, said she should take water and cleanse herself well, or complete the ablution and then pour water on her head and rub it till it reaches the roots of her hair, of her head, and then pour water over it. Aisha said, how good are the women of Ansar, that their shyness does not prevent them from learning religion, because this was the early days of it. And then the second one, Sulaim came to the Messenger of Allah and said, O Messenger of Allah, Allah does not feel shy of truth. So, is bath obligatory upon a woman when she has nocturnal sexual discharge? The Prophet said, when she sees signs of discharge, and he ended it there. When we look at examples like that, we feel assured that people new to Islam made sure to ask questions rather than worry about doing the wrong thing. We in today's so-called modern society don't have the confidence to ask questions, which in the long run not only help us, but help people around us. In Western societies, sex education in schools is very much encouraged, and a lot of debate takes place whenever any new issue comes about. In my eyes, at least some effort is made to help educate young minds in the pitfalls that can come about if there was no sex education. Ideally, the same issues can be handled in an Islamic way, with emphasis on religious values and the beauty and harm of sexual relations pre-marriage. When we look at our Holy Quran and find verses that guide us, this should encourage us to have a dialogue, to create safe and healthy environment, to have question-answer sessions. In my eyes, this is the only way forward. It is easy to say, I didn't know, or no one told me. When we have organized training at different stages in our lives, things can only improve. At various ages, through a child's, from childhood to youth to maturity, that there are different topics that are discussed at different times in their lives. We see that the Holy Quran, despite its noble language, does not shy away from mentioning sexual matters. It says, "He it is who created you from a single soul, and of the same did he make his mate, that he might find comfort in her. So when he covers her, she bears a light burden, then moves about with it. Then when it grows heavy, they both call upon Allah, their Lord. If you give us a good one, we shall certainly be grateful." So this is from Surah 7 and verse 189. The sexual act is described here, but in a very gentle, soft way. So you can see how beautiful sex education is described in the Quran. If we start educating slowly and safely, the young minds start to think of their actions and consequences of their actions. And one hopes that when the time comes, they handle all aspects of marital life sensitively, with God and His commands to do the right thing. So nothing is barred or there's a barrier in front of it that you can't find out in a healthy environment, because we all have minds that work differently, and we need to do things that help men and women reaching some conclusions, and the responsibility at the end of the day lies with them. That Allah has made all these commands, but the responsibility lies with you. So unless you know of that responsibility, you will carry on sort of looking in the dark to find the answers. But the answer is in talking to each other and talking to people who you feel comfortable with. So it is very important that we need to discuss these things further.
Jazakallah. It was very well explained. Let us go on to our next question. So, talking about marriage, Islam also gives us guidance on how to handle a situation where things are not going well in a marriage and there is some conflict. Please help us understand this guidance that Islam gives us.
Okay. It took me a long time to think of what can I say. It is such a lengthy and difficult subject that needs a lot of attention. So I have made an attempt at looking at it. So let's see what you think. In everyday life, we come across many kinds of situations that we find difficult to understand, and also how to go about finding solutions for them. If I can talk about my personal experiences, then one has really first to look at the situation and how it affects us. Does it involve other people, or is it strictly between the two of us? This is how I have looked at my life, and I don't have any other examples to give. If it involves other people, then we have to look at resolving it by involving them in it. And if not, then we must first try to solve it ourselves without involving a third party to it, because it is an issue that has been raised by the two of us. I feel when you involve others, then they give you advice through their life experiences, which might be very different from your own. They may cause more confusion than give you any help. I feel if your marriage is based on honesty, then you put forward both grievances and try and look at who could be the cause of this difficulty, and taking a step back to assess the situation and try and find solutions. This will give you more confidence in each other to resolve future difficulties, because life is full of ups and downs. You've solved one thing, another one comes and stands in front of you. So I very strongly feel that the couple's private life should be private, and they do not talk about their personal issues with others. Rather than confiding in others, confide amongst themselves is the best way to deal with your personal issues. And I feel very strongly about it because a lot of the time, I don't know whether men do that or not, but women do talk about their personal issues to their friends and relations, and I feel that is something my mother never did, and I don't think that I ever did. And it is something, a marriage life is a very sacred relationship that you have. So that sacred relationship requires some rules and regulations. So we need to look at them like that and not take things lightly. My mother-in-law once said to me that we all have weaknesses. So rather than looking and pointing out others' weaknesses, one should try and look at their strengths. And by doing that, quite often you find that their strengths outweigh the weaknesses. One can say it is not always easy, but you have to try something before rejecting it. But in some cases, the weakness is of a kind that one has to do something about it before moving on. So when we have weaknesses of all kinds, and you have sort of gone through and resolved issues, but then there can be things that are really you cannot put up with. So you have to do something about it. It's quite often, little things that cause problems and they become big issues. So once you solve those little things, then the big issues can be solved in a different way. Another very good advice a parent can give to their children before marriage is to understand that both of you have been brought up in different families, and each family has its own way of doing and dealing with issues. So do not start to compare, as that will not help at all. Now you live your life according to your own understanding and making your own decisions, which are yours alone. This way, you will have a chance to evaluate and make changes to your changes as you see right, with Huququllah and Huququl Ibad in your mind. That can also be a big issue between families. That you say, oh, it doesn't. I do it this way, you do it that way. Mine is better, yours isn't better. But you two have made a family, and that family should have its own rules. Don't compare them. Don't depend on them because the other might not see them that way. So you have to find a way for yourself. So there isn't a book that I can say, well, read this book, really good. You'll find the answers to all your difficulties, because every difficulty has a solution, and that solution is yours and yours alone. You can talk about it. You can say, I did it this way. And then maybe you can look at it and find your own way. When you feel that you have tried and failed in resolving issues, then you need to seek help. It is really important to decide on what type of help you need. Islam does not prohibit us from benefiting from research done by people all over the world on any topic, including conflict resolution. This is just as we use modern science, technology, and medicine developed by anyone, anywhere in the world. There has been a lot of research into conflict resolution in marriage, which can benefit from, while still remaining within the Islamic guidelines. So you can look up resources, but then at the end of the day, it's our religion that you have to be in your mind when you're making those decisions.
Jazakallah. There's a lot of good information, and there is an echo. Hmm. So we will continue with the same. Last question, continues with the previous question. How can we apply the Quranic guidelines in our modern context to achieve the same purpose of restored harmony between couples or an equitable parting of ways in case differences cannot be resolved?
So this is the question that has answers, all of them, in the Holy Quran. And I could read verse after verse after verse from different ayats that guide us, different chapters and different guidelines given there. So I have pointed out some, and let's see how we move on. From Surah An-Nisa, verse 35, it says, and if you fear a breach between the two, appoint an arbiter from his people and an arbiter from her people. If they both desire agreement, Allah will effect harmony between them. Surely Allah is ever knowing, aware. So that is the first one. If the husband and wife cannot resolve their problems in any equitable way themselves, then the Holy Quran gives guidance to reach a solution. When all avenues available in the couple to the couple have been explored and still cannot resolve their problems, then they can give clear instructions. Then there are clear instructions given in the Holy Quran to end the relationship in an amicable way. In the Holy Quran, it says that the reconciliation is best. And then again, 4 verse 128, and in a woman, and if a woman fears ill usage from her husband or desertion, there is no blame on the two of them that they effect a reconciliation between them, and reconciliation is better. And greed is met within people's minds, and if you do good to others and keep your duty, surely Allah is ever aware of what you do. Then again in 4:19, it says, O you who believe, it is not lawful for you to take women as heritage against their will, nor should you cause them hardship by taking part of what you have given them, unless they are guilty of manifest indecency, and treat them kindly. Then if you hate them, it may be that you dislike a thing while Allah has placed abundant good in it. Here are a few of the examples of how our Creator wants us to deal with conflict. Every nation, every tribe, and every family has their own way of dealing with conflict, and they will change too with time, but the fundamental message and guidance remains the same. Surat At-Talaq and Surat An-Nisa are the biggest sources of guidance regarding parting of ways, and they can be used at any time in one's life. The emphasis is basically of good treatment at difficult times, as it can happen to anyone in their life. In the end, I would like to mention something I feel that is the essence of the relationship of marriage. And it is the apparel for one another. It is made lawful for you to have intercourse with your wives on the night of the fast. They are an apparel for you, and you an apparel for them. This is in Surah Al-Baqarah, and the verse says 187. There is nothing between you and your apparel which you are wearing. Your apparel is the closest thing to you, and that and you also care very much for it. That is how your relationship should be with your marital partner. The most private and intimate action in relationship is a thing which in only a few words speaks volumes for the ones who want to make Allah's uh, guidance aim of their life. So I feel that when Allah has created us and given us so much, and I find that that apparel analogy such a beautiful one, that we put our dupattas and we put our shalwar and kameez or any kind of clothing, and we take care of it, and we want to look pretty and beautiful in it. So when it is covered by both of you, then it should be something which is taken care of. But we can carry on talking about it, but unfortunately we don't have time to do that. So I'll end it here. Thank you.
Jazakallah, Mrs. Aziz. You have really explained these tricky issues, these difficult issues to address in a very beautiful way. And especially ending with that example given in the Quran of, apparel, like clothes for each other, like garments for each other that cover each other's faults, that protect you from heat and the cold, and, providing that what are we without our clothes? They do everything for us. And in the same way, I hope that we can all use the guidance in the Quran and the Sunnah to improve on our lives. And I hope that the listeners of this broadcast will also bring us their questions and guide us in preparing further sessions so that we can learn about issues that people are facing, and use those to um, do some more research and address issues that people are facing, because sometimes we read about the guidance that is in the Quran and the Sunnah, but when it comes to apply it to our lives, everyone's situation is different and the context is different, and so how to personalize those things can be very hard. So I end with this dua that Allah helps us to understand His message in the best possible way and to apply it in our lives and to share it with others. Jazakallah everybody for participating and listening. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullah.